Good day, everyone. Welcome to another topic in general mathematics. We will talk about rational function. Our objectives for this video lesson are find the domain and range of a rational function, determine the asymptotes, zeros, and intercepts of a rational function, and analyze the graph of a rational function. So before we proceed on these objectives, let us recall first our grade 10 lessons about polynomial functions. So yung basic concept lang ng polynomial functions because some of the terms will be used later on. So always remember that a polynomial function has parts. We have here the coefficients, the leading term, the leading coefficient, and the constant term. Okay, so once we say the coefficients, it is what we call the numerical coefficient. So kumbaga, dito sa aking presentation, yun yung mga a sub n minus 1, and so on. So yun po yung mga number na nasa tabi po ng ating variables. Now once we say the leading term, leading, ibig sabihin, nandun yung may pinakamataas na exponent. Okay, so kung nasan man yung pinakamataas na exponent, the term there pertains to the leading term. And then the leading coefficient, kung ano yung numerical coefficient dun sa leading term. And once we say constant, it is particularly the number na walang kasamang variable. So using examples, we have here f of x is equal to 2x to the 5th power minus x cubed minus 7. So in this case, let us focus on degree, leading coefficient, and the constant term. So again, once we say degree, it pertains to the highest exponent. Okay, so let me write it. So highest exponent. So on this function, ano yung may pinakamataas na exponent? So that is 5. Okay? Anong ibig sabihin dito ng leading term? Siyempre, kung nasa yung pinakamataas na exponent, ito na yung ating leading term. Okay? Because the next one is the leading coefficient. Ibig sabihin, numerical. Ano yung number na nasa tabi ng variable dun sa leading term? So that is 2. And then the constant term, the variable without the literal coefficient, yung basta number lang, constant, hindi dapat nagbabago. Because if we have a variable, ibig sabihin, the value could change. So dito, dapat walang variable nakatabi. So that is -7. Okay, another one, if we have here h of x is equal to -x to the 4th plus the square root of 2x squared minus 5, which of the following, what is the degree rather? So, ibig sabihin highest exponent ulit. So, that is 4. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, ito ang ating leading term. Now, what is our leading coefficient? The numerical coefficient. So, may negative tayo. Walang number na nakalagay. So, it only means that may 1 yun. At sa ngayon, yan ay negative. And then, a constant term, very good. That is -5. The number without a variable beside it. Okay? So I hope that's clear. And I want you to recall as well the different kinds of graphs of a function. Pagka linear, ang degree ay 1, tapos straight line lang talaga siya. Kaya tinawag na linear. Siya ay paslant. At ang ating function dyan is y is equal to mx plus b. Then the next one is the quadratic function. The degree is 2. Ang itsura ng graph niya ay pa-letter U ang shape niya. Okay? And then for the cubic, it's like a letter S. Ang degree ay 3. Now, ano ang sa rational function? So before we proceed on the graphs and other properties, let us recall the definition of the rational function. It is a function of the form f of x is equal to p of x over q of x, wherein the denominator q of x should not be equal to 0 because pagka naging 0, magiging undefined. Kaya yan ang ating iniiwasan, yung maging q of x is not equal to 0. Okay? So let's proceed now on the properties. The first property is the domain. the range, the asymptotes, may tatlong klase tayo, the vertical, horizontal, and the oblique. Hindi lahat ay meron. May mga pagkakataon na ang isa dyan ay wala. Later on, i-emphasize ko yon. And then the intercepts, alam na natin to. We have the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So let's start first with the domain. It is a set of all real numbers except for the value that will make the denominator equal to 0. I would like to emphasize this, the denominator equal to 0. Kasi yan yung bawal, yan yung exemptions. At sa domain, binanggit ko na rin before that that is pertaining to the values of x. So for this case, iniiwasan nating maging undefined. Example number 1, f of x is equal to x over x minus 1. So the first thing here is, we need to get the denominator kasi yan yung crucial. Yan kasi yung pwedeng maging undefined. Get it and then equate it to 0. And then find the value of x. Okay, so yung shortcut, transpose lang or yung addition property of equality, mag-add ka lang on 1 on both sides. So magiging x is equal to 1. So this will make the denominator equal to 0. So big sabihin, it is not part of the domain. Kasi pagka ginawa natin si 1, pag kinuha natin si 1, magiging undefined na yung ating buong function. So ibig sabihin nito, ang domain lang talaga natin ay x such that x is not equal to 1. Kahit na anong real number, basta hindi 1. So on other references, ang domain dito ay makikita nyo rin na ganito. X is an element of real numbers. So ito yung symbol for the real numbers. Pero hindi daw kasama si 1. Okay? I hope that's clear. Then the next one is the range. It is based from the horizontal asymptote, the another property of the rational function. But in case, sa ngayon, hindi ko pa naman din na-discuss ang horizontal asymptote, tayo po ay mag-focus muna doon sa graph. So I'm just teaching you some simple ways on how to get it. Pero marami pa yan. Iba pa ang proseso niyan. So mag-focus muna tayo dito sa madaling paraan. So f of x is equal to x over x minus 1 is your example before. We're going to use the graphing method first. So we will use the Desmos or the graphing calculator. So if you don't have the graphing calculator yet, pwede nyo rin siyang gawing online. O kaya pagka meron kayong Android, pwede rin po. So in another browser, we have here the Google. Tapos i-type nyo lang ito, Desmos graphing calculator, because I've been using it on my previous lectures. Kaya naka-default na siya dyan. And then, piliin nyo lang to. Basta ang piliin nyo, itong legit na link, yung www.desmos.com. And, mapupunta na tayo dito. So, ito yung interface ng Desmos. Ito yung function bar. Dito tayo magta-type. And then, this is the graphing area. So, paki-explore na lang. Maganda tong app na to. Okay? So, kanina, ang gamit natin ay, so, nabanggit ko na rin naman yan na, balik lang tayo, kasi walang f of x, instead of typing f of x, pwede naman nating i-type rin na y because they are equal. So, y is equal to x over x minus 1. So, pagka ganyan, balikan lang natin yung Desmos. So, type in natin, gamit itong keyboard, show keypad, and then y is equal to, tapos, x, and then divided by, so kung papansin nyo, may lumalabas agad, no? So, ganun ang Desmos. And then, x minus 1. So, ganyan ang itsura ng graph daw ng ating in-example ngayon. So, madali natin ditong makikita ang domain at saka ang range. Okay? So, observe carefully. Kung i-drag ninyo yung graph, yung mismong nasa red line, makikita nyo agad yung mga ordered pairs. Okay? Ngayon, domain at range. So, sa domain muna tayo. Doon tayo sa may x. Okay? So, alin dito, ito yung x-axis natin, yung pahiga natin, yung horizontal line, alin dito sa mga sa value ng x-axis ang hindi tinamaan ng graph. Ibig sabihin, hindi siya parte ng solution dito sa ating function. So, kung mapapansin nyo, let's have a closer look. Ito yung addition, yung zoom in. Ito naman yung zoom out. Kung mapapansin nyo, kung itadrag natin pataas at pababa, hindi siya tumatama sa 1. Kaya ang domain natin kanina, hindi equal kay 1. Kasi nga mag-undefined siya doon. And then, pagka naman sa range, alin naman dito sa y-axis yung patayo na, ang hindi tinamaan ng graph. So, kung mapapansin nyo, ito naman yon yung 1. So, kahit na i-zoom pa natin yan, hindi talaga siya tatama doon sa 1. Okay? So, Desmos is indeed helpful for us to analyze the functions, specifically for the rational functions. So, with that, ang range natin ay, so, our example, yan yung graph natin kanina doon sa Desmos. Yan po ay y such that y should not be equal to 1. Kasi nga, hindi nga siya tumama dito sa ating y-axis, particularly with 1. Walang value doon. Okay? So, anything, kahit sa anong parte dyan ng real numbers, basta hindi kasama ang 1. Okay po? So, the next one. Let's proceed on the asymptotes. Once we say asymptotes, it is the line where the graph of a function is approaching and getting closer but will never cross it. Pag sinabing never cross, tulad ng mga nababanggit ko kanina, hindi niya tinatamaan yung x-axis at saka yung y-axis. Pwedeng yon. Or yung iba pang lines doon sa ating graph. So, hindi laging x and y-axis. Pwede ring iba pang lines. At yun yung ating hahanapin. Katulad kanina, meron tayong horizontal at vertical. Ganun din po sa asymptotes. So, the first type of asymptote is the vertical asymptote. Okay? With this definition, it only tells us to be very particular with the denominator. Okay? So, doon kung ano man yung polynomial dito, i-equate natin by 0. And then, kukunin natin yung mismong value ng x saan. At yun na ang vertical asymptote. Okay? So, for this example, yung vertical, patayo. O, di ba? Parang ginawa na rin natin yan kanina. Okay? So, for this, para siyang yun dun sa domain. Okay? So, ang kapartner ng vertical asymptote ay ang ating domain. Kung ano yung bawal doon sa domain, yun ang vertical asymptote. Kasi hindi naman tumatama doon yung graph. So, having the same process on the domain, kunin lang si denominator and then solve for the value of x. And that x is equal to 1 is our vertical asymptote. So, using our Desmos, type in lang natin, x is equal to 1. So, yan na yun. Pansinin niyo yung blue line, hindi sila nagtatama ng red, yung mismong graph natin. So, ibig sabihin, yan talaga yung ating vertical asymptote. Okay? Next one. Let's proceed with the second type, which is the horizontal asymptote. We have here the 3 cases. At very particular tayo with the degree of the polynomial in the numerator and the denominator. Kaya pinarecall ko sa inyo kanina yung degree at magagamit din natin dito ang leading coefficients. So we have here the 3 cases. Remember that the n pertains to the highest exponent or the degree in the numerator and then m for the denominator. Case 1, if n is less than m, ibig sabihin mas mababa yung degree ng numerator kaysa sa denominator, HA means horizontal asymptote. The answer is always y is equal to 0. And then, pagka case 2, pagka equal lang sila, gagawin natin, kukunin lang natin yung quotient of the leading coefficients of the numerator and the denominator. So, once we simplified, yun na yung sagot natin for the horizontal asymptote. And then, for case number 3, if n is greater than m, mas mataas yung degree ng numerator kaysa sa denominator, it pertains to we don't have a horizontal asymptote. Pag wala tayong horizontal asymptote, ibig sabihin, meron tayong oblique asymptote. Yun yung OA. Okay? So later on, we will have an example. So yung horizontal asymptote, lagi tayong meron nun. Pero ang horizontal asymptote at saka ang vertical asymptote, kapag lang may horizontal asymptote, wala tayong oblique. Pero pagka may oblique, wala tayong horizontal asymptote. So hindi pwedeng mangyari ng sabay. Okay? So for this example, yun yung kanina natin. So ang kapartner ng horizontal ay ang range. Dito naman tayo sa y. Kasi yun yung magbibigay sa atin ng horizontal line. So for that case, given this example, without using the graph, kunin po natin yung degree ng numerator. Okay? So ano ang degree ng ating numerator? Ano ang exponent dito? So walang nakalagay, so it means that is 1. Okay? And then for the m, we have here for the denominator, wala ding nakalagay, ibig sabihin may 1 din yan. Okay? With that, tingnan natin anong relationship ng n and m. Is that greater than, less than, or equal to? Very good. Parehas lang naman sila. So, n is equal to m. So, ibig sabihin, pasok tayo sa case 2. Ang gagamitin nating process, yung case 2. Ano daw ang sabi? Kunin ang quotient ng leading coefficients. So, tinuro ko na yung kaninang leading coefficient. Ang leading coefficient dito, yung number beside the variable, that is 1. Wala ring nakalagay, di ba? Ganun din dito, sa denominator, that is also 1. Then 1 divided by 1, that is 1. So, ibig sabihin, y is equal to 1 ang ating horizontal asymptote. So, balikan natin yung Desmos kanina. Type in natin, y is equal to 1. Pag in-enter natin iyan, papansin nyo yung green line, yan ang ating horizontal asymptote. Kahit na anong gawin mo, sa kaliwa at sa kanan, pag drinag mo yan, hindi sila magtatagpo. Okay? So, yan ang ating horizontal asymptote. Dahil meron tayong horizontal asymptote, ibig sabihin wala tayong oblique asymptote. Pero ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng oblique asymptote? Oblique, ibig sabihin slanted. Okay? Pahalang. Okay? Ngayon, kailan siya nag-exist? Kapag ka ang degree ng numerator ay mas malaki kesa doon sa degree ng denominator. Or it pertains to the case 3 of our horizontal asymptote. Okay? Bakit siya slanted? Kasi may slope tayo. Okay? So, yan yung linear form. Ngayon, paano natin kukunin ang oblique asymptote? We're going to divide the numerator and the denominator. At kapag ka may remainder doon sa quotient, doon sa nakuha natin, na pagka-divide, hindi na natin papansinan yung remainder. Kukunin lang natin yung mismong quotient. So for our case, before we proceed on our example pala, ito yung itsura ng oblique asymptote. So kung i-zoom in ko lang siya, okay? So, ang itsura ng oblique asymptote ay itong mga nakapaslant. Okay, itong paslant na to. Okay, so yan ang ating oblique asymptote. Okay? Itong paslant na yan. So, for our example, dahil meron tayong horizontal asymptote, wala tayong oblique asymptote. Okay? So, I hope that's clear. And then, let's proceed to the last property. We have here the intercepts. Intercept. Ibig sabihin nun, saan tatama yung graph, yung mismong graph, doon sa x-axis at saka sa y-axis. So, meron tayong x-intercept if and only if y is equal to 0. Bakit y is equal to 0? Kasi hinahanap natin yung value ng x na kung saan nandun siya sa x-axis. Okay? And then, yung y-intercept, kabaligtaran, y-intercept, hinahanap yung y value. Kaya si x ay equal to 0. So, using our example, so let's start first with the x-intercept. Okay? So, instead of writing f of x, we will write it as y. Okay? So, equal siya kay y, ha? Remember that. X over x minus 1. X-intercept, sabi, y is equal to 0. So, lahat ng y palitan ng 0. And then, x over x minus 1. So, shortcut na lang tayo. We're going to cross-multiply. Okay? So, ito, multiply natin dyan. Then, retain na lang to kasi wala naman tong tawag dito, it's over 1. Mga parang ganon. So, 0 times x minus 1, that is 0. And then 1 times x is x. So, it only means that the x-intercept is 0. Okay? And then for the y-intercept, x is equal to 0. So, ganun ulit. Kopyahin natin yung given. Lahat naman ng x, papalitan ng 0. So, we will have, simplify nyo lang. So, 0 minus 1 is negative 1. And then, the answer here is 0. So, it means this one is our y-intercept. Kung babalikan natin yung desmos natin kanina, yung mismong graph, saan ba tumama yung ating graph, itong red na to, sa x and y axis? Tumama siya dito mismo sa ating origin. Kaya, yan ang ating x and y-intercept. X is equal to 0 and y is equal to 0. Kung gusto nyo ma-verify pa, pindutin nyo lang itong edit list, tapos itong convert to table, para makita nyo, ito yung value ng x, diba? 0. Tapos itong sa y, yun yung mismong function, 0. So, yan ang ating x and y intercepts. Okay, so I hope that's clear. To sum it up, for our first example, the domain should not be equal to 1, yung x natin. The range, excluded si 1. At kung mapapansin nyo, itong x is equal to 1, ay ka-pair up niya itong domain. That's a vertical asymptote. Tapos itong horizontal asymptote, ka-pair up niya itong range. So kung anong bawal dito sa domain, yun ang sagot sa vertical. At yung bawal dito sa range, yun ang sagot sa horizontal. Dahil nag-exist sa horizontal, wala tayong oblique, and then ang nakuha nating sagot kanina, for the x and y intercepts are both 0. Okay, I hope that's clear. Now, this is the summary on finding the properties. You can take a screenshot of it. So, pagka-domain, we need to get the denominator and equate it to 0, solve for x. Then, the range, based on the graph, at ka-pair up din naman niya doon sa may horizontal asymptote. And for the vertical asymptote, we're just going to get, again, the denominator, similar with domain. So, ka-pair up lang niya doon. And then, the horizontal asymptote has 3 cases. Pagka nag-case 3, ibig sabihin, doon lang nag-exist si oblique asymptote. At kailangan lang din po natin dito na i-divide si numerator at saka si denominator para makuha natin yung form na y is equal to mx plus b. And then the x-intercept if y is equal to 0, and then y-intercept if x is equal to 0. So I hope that's helpful for everyone. So let's proceed on another example. So, isa-isahin natin ang ating mga properties. So, una pala ang bilin ko pala sa inyo ay, tingnan nyo yung function. Pagka-simplified form na siya, pwede na natin kunin yung properties. So, let's proceed on our first property, which is the domain. So, katulad ng kanina, kukunin natin ang denominator. So, you will have x minus 6 is equal to 0. So, with that, lipat lang si negative 6, magiging positive 6. So, it gives us that the domain x such that x should not be equal to 6. Okay? So, with that, magbibigay yan sa atin na ito ngayon ang ating vertical asymptote. Okay? So, ang vertical asymptote natin ay x is equal to 6. So, yan yun. Okay? Ayusin ko lang yung arrow para malinaw. So, madali, di ba? You can also try it. You can pause this video, tapos sagutan ninyo. Then afterwards, after you answered it, pwede nyong i-check. Okay? Then, the next one is the range. So, naka-pair up siya, di ba, sa horizontal asymptote. So, I suggest, kunin nyo na si horizontal asymptote. Okay, ano ulit ang kukunin sa horizontal asymptote? The values of n and m. N is a degree for the numerator. Wala, di ba? Wala itong variable. So, ibig sabihin, 0 siya. Then, yung m, ang degree natin dito ay 1. So, that is 1. And anong relationship? 0 is less than 1. Or in short, n is less than 1. Okay? Or n is less than m pala. Sorry. So, if that's the case, balikan lang natin, anong case kaya siya? Okay? N is less than m. So, pasok siya ngayon dito sa case 1. So, y is equal to 0. Okay? So, for that part, automatic, y is equal to 0 because this is case 1. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, dahil y is equal to 0 to, ang ating range ngayon dito ay y such that y should not be equal to 0. So, as simple as that. So, we're done with the first 4 properties. We will now proceed. So, this is letter C and this one is letter D. We will now proceed on oblique asymptote. So, sa oblique asymptote, katulad ng binabanggit ko, meron tayong horizontal asymptote. Nagkataon lang na nandun siya sa 0. So, it doesn't mean na wala talaga pagdating sa horizontal asymptote. So, meron tayong horizontal asymptote. So, ibig sabihin, wala tayong oblique. Okay? And then, the last two are the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So, again, x-intercept, hinahanap si x, kaya y is equal to 0. So, copying our given, f of x will change into y. So, magiging 1 over x minus 6. Change y into 0, kasi ito yon, is equal to 1 over x minus 6. At katulad ng ginawa ko kanina, cross-multiply. So, 0 times x minus 6, it will become 0. And then, 1 times 1 is 1. As you can notice, pwede ba to? 0 is equal to 1? It will never happen. So, it only means that x-intercept ay wala din po tayo. So, pwede po yun. Ibig sabihin, hindi tumama yung graph doon sa mismong x-axis. And it's okay. Then, the last one is the y-intercept. So, for the y-intercept, x is equal to 0. So, y is equal to 1 over x minus 6. X will become 0. So, 0 minus 6, the answer here is 1 over negative 6. Or in short, ang ating y-intercept ay negative 1 over 6. Okay, so that is, these are the properties of the given function 1 over x minus 6. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Let's proceed on this part to give emphasis on the asymptotes para mabigyan natin ng chance na makapag-solve tayo ng oblique. Okay, so let's have this case, f of x is equal to x squared plus 2 over x minus 1. So, dyan, kung mapapansin nyo, is it simplified? Okay, so kung simplified na yan, okay na tayo dyan. So, simplified, proceed tayo. Ibig sabihin, wala na tayong pwedeng ma-cancel. Because there are times that you need to factor it out para mas madali, mas simple yung ating masosolve. Okay, so okay na yan. Proceed na tayo sa ating vertical asymptote. So, for this, kukunin lang ulit natin ang denominator. So, we will have x minus 1 is equal to 0. So, what's the value of x? Okay, very good. X is equal to 1. So, it only means, sa domain natin, x should not be equal to 1. Ganun, ha? And then, proceed tayo sa horizontal asymptote. So, sa horizontal asymptote, kunin natin yung ating mga degrees. Sa n, ang degree natin for numerator, ito yung pinakamataas, so that is 2. Then, for the m, walang nakalagay, so that is 1. So, with this, clearly, 2 is greater than 1. Or in short, n is greater than m. At kung babalikan natin yung kaninang summary natin, this pertains to case 3. So, it only means wala tayong horizontal asymptote. Dahil wala tayong horizontal asymptote, dun pumapasok yung isosolve na natin si oblique asymptote. Okay? So, sa oblique asymptote, we're going to divide the numerator and the denominator. May ibang ways. Okay? Pwedeng long division. Pwede ring synthetic division. Okay? So, for this video lesson, para mas madalian tayo, sa akin I suggest yung synthetic division. So, using the synthetic division, so kunin muna natin yung numerator, x squared plus 2. Kung mapapansin nyo, incomplete. Incomplete exponent. So, kailangan muna natin kumpletuhin. Kasi 2 na to tapos biglang naging constant na. So, in short, magsisingit tayo, di ba, ng kung anong kulang. So, 2, 1, 0. So, okay na yan. Then, get the numerical coefficient. So, dito ay 1, 0, and then 2. Then, for the denominator, parang ito na din yon yung sa vertical asymptote. Kukunin lang yung value ng x. So, that is 1. And then, bring down, di ba, yung unang number. Then, multiply 1 times 1 is 1. Lagay dito. Then, it's always addition. 0 plus 1 is 1. And then, 1 times 1 is also 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. This one is what we call remainder. Pero katulad nga ng bilin ko sa inyo kanina, wag na natin pansinin to. This is excluded. Okay? Ngayon, ito na lang ang pagbibigyan natin ng pansin. Paano yan, ma'am? Di ba meron tayong x squared dito tsaka x? So, what is x squared divided by x? Very good. The answer there is x. Ibig sabihin dito, x na lang ang matitira. So, magiging, at dahil positive ito, magiging plus. So, ang ating oblique asymptote ay y is equal to x plus 1. At yan ay naka y is equal to mx plus b na po. Okay? So, ganyan po kumuha ng oblique asymptote. You may use synthetic division or you may also use the long division. Parehas lang naman din po ang magiging sagot. Okay? So, mag-practice lang po. Balikan natin yung mga prerequisites. So, ito yung itsura niya sa Desmos. Itong color red, yan yung ating function kanina. And then, itong color blue, ito yung ating oblique asymptote. Okay? So, try nyo yan sa Desmos. Kung i-focus nyo yan, kung i-zoom in nyo pa siya, mapapansin nyo yan na hindi sila talaga nagtatama. Mukha lang siya nagtatama dyan kasi hindi pa yan naka-close up. Okay? So, that is the oblique asymptote. So, take note of this summary again in finding the properties of the rational functions. I hope you could try other rational functions and practice lang ang kailangan. Okay, we have here the properties, the domain, the range, the vertical asymptote, the horizontal asymptote, the oblique asymptote, the x, and the y-intercept. With that, math may be difficult for most of us, but do not give up. Let us continue to practice and persevere. Matisip ng mabuti, magtanong pag hindi maunawaan, at tayo ay math usap. Maraming salamat po. God bless us.